Starting with the PNP draws, Ontario on the 2nd of December held 3 separate draws for candidates in the employer job offer stream. This was the foreign workers stream. Now, often, whenever these kind of draws happen, especially from Ontario, people get very confused. People have heard about the human capital priorities stream. And most of you already know in the human capital priority stream, you don't need to do anything except having an active express entry profile. And of course, your primary knock code should be one that Ontario is interested in or is wanting to invite: skilled trades, healthcare, tech, whatever that might be. So your primary knock code has to be that. So that's your human capital priorities. You don't have to do anything. You get invited if your CRS is within the range and your knock code is a primary knock code as in interest or as of interest to Ontario. But the expression of interest stream for Ontario is completely different. This is primarily not for everybody, but primarily is for people who are in Canada and have a job offer. Now, you don't need to be in Canada. That is not a requirement for all the streams. It is for some streams. In some streams, you even need to be in Ontario, not only in Canada. But the main criteria is you need to have a job offer from an employer, or you should have completed your master's or PhD from the designated institution in Ontario. Only in these two conditions would you be able to create your expression of interest. So you have a job offer, you're an international student, you have a job offer, you're not an international student, you could be outside Canada as well, but you're inside Canada, and you have completed your master's or PhD. These are the main streams under which you would create your expression of interest. When you create your expression of interest, it gives you points, and as per those points, they conduct draws in separate streams, and that is when you get invited. So on 2nd of December, Ontario held 3 separate draws for candidates in employer's job offer stream. Now, this was one of the largest draws that they've held. They invited 1,663 candidates in healthcare, STEM occupations, and the minimum score was 43. They also held another draw in the skilled trades occupation, again for employer job offer stream, and they invited 761 with a minimum score of only 34. Trust me, 34 is a good score to sort of get through with this one. And everybody who was invited, they now have 14 days, 14 days to complete their application. One of the biggest requirement for this stream is that you need to provide from your employer an employer form. That employer form contains employer financial data, employee data, and some other information, which unfortunately most employers are unwilling to provide. Therefore, it makes this stream, this program, tad bit more difficult. But 14 days, if you have received it, your employer is on your side, then this is a good stream to apply for if you do not have any other options. But this is a non-express entry stream, which basically means you do not get any 600 points. Once you get the nomination, you have to apply through the non-express entry stream, which can take 18 to 20, 24 months in some cases. Ontario also conducted a 13-candidate economic mobility pathway project draw. No minimum score was required. This EMPP pathway is primarily for skilled refugees and other displaced people who can now immigrate to Canada and are obviously get nominated by the province as well. British Columbia on December 5th held 4 targeted draws for 193 skilled workers and international graduates. International postgraduate stream does not need a job offer. Everybody else in British Columbia for any of their streams, any of their programs will need to have a job offer. Again, if you are a person who has managed to get a job as a childhood educator or in healthcare occupations, then you obviously by now know that British Columbia conducts their draws almost every week, and the scores are quite low, which is only at 60 in most cases. Manitoba on the 4th of December also conducted a draw. 117 candidates were invited, but this was primarily for people who were affected by the conflict in Ukraine. The minimum language benchmark was only CLB4, and for people who had already established a connection in Manitoba and were able to score at least 60 points in the Manitoba criteria, they were all invited for this particular draw. Now, this is where a lot of things have happened this particular week, starting with the fact that the draw actually happened, right? After hiatus of 57 days, IRCC finally managed to resolve the technical glitch because of which they were holding back the draws. 57 days, that's what it took them. 57 days and providing extensions to people who had received ITA in September 26, 27, 28. Those three dates, people who received ITAs, they were all given extensions. So after the hiatus of 57 days, they conducted a draw. Whew, finally, right? But this draw, as much as it was an all-program draw conducted on the 6th of December, 4,750 people were invited. 561 was the score. So the good thing was, yay, there was a draw. But the bad thing was, yeah, score was 561. What kind of a draw is for 561? But then if I was to look at the pool breakdown, look at the CRS score range. Between 601 to 1200, there was 4,525 people. That PNP draws is a mandatory requirement or a mandatory obligation that IRCC has towards the provinces. Because if they do not conduct those draws, then people have a deadline on their nomination. So therefore, what IRCC did is they issued 4,750 ITAs. It pretty much clears out only the PNP range, 601 to 1200, primarily, by and large. Majority are people who have nominations, 600 points, right? There are, of course, a few who may be beyond, who may be more than 600, provided they have a 200-point CRS LMIAs, and those people could be there. But primarily, this was a draw for the PNP nomination. So 4,525, those got cleared. And I'm sure by the time they have taken this pool breakdown, which was on the 5th of December, one day before the draw, and by the time they conducted the draw on the 6th of December, there would be few more additions to the PNP number. So this number between 601 to 1200 was probably close to 4,600, 4,650. And after that, they invited 4,750, which basically means the number of people between the 501 to 600 range, about 100 or some people got cleared. Therefore, the score had to be high 500. That is one heck of a crazy high score. But that's what happened. 561 was the score, all program draw. The only thing we were happy about was at least the draw is conducted. Then the next day, which was the 7th of December, as we were hoping, again, I was not expecting a French category draw because they had already conducted a French category draw even in October. I was thinking more in lines of healthcare, more in lines of STEM as well, but I didn't, to be very honest, didn't anticipate any other draw for that week because this was conducted on the 6th. I said, okay, maybe they'll take it easy a bit. But again, 7th December, thankfully, they did conduct a French category-based draw. Invited 1,000 people, 470 was the score, which basically again means another 1,000 people were cleared out from the express entry pool. All these numbers are important because when we will start talking about the pool breakdown and analysis, then you will need to understand where and how these numbers are impacting. Then on the 8th of December, voila, this was a big one, right? STEM, or the last STEM category draw which happened, 6th of July. Ever since that 6th of July day, when the score was 486, but only 500 invitations issued for STEM category, whether it's my Instagram account, whether it's my Twitter account, or whether it's your live stream, every single time, the biggest question is, when is the STEM category? We always knew that it's around the corner. We always knew it's going to happen. We always knew that there is one big STEM category draw happening or going to happen. Finally, on the 8th of December, you had it. 5,900 invitations. 481 was the score. Thankfully, it was lower than the last 486. We expected a higher score if the draw was to be conducted. Why? Because the previous draw was at 561. Okay, so that tells you between 561 and 481, there were about 5,900 plus people who was in the STEM category. Now, mind you, this STEM category draw is not only for IT. This also has engineers. This also has architects. This also has certain other occupations, STEM science for science, technology, engineering, mathematics, right? So they also have some other categories, other occupations that were included. 24 different occupations. This makes for a big, big draw. 5,900 score is now at 481. Now, bear with me, and we will talk about this more in detail when I get to this section, but this is a good draw. I know a lot of people are still not excited about this. They go, what is there to be excited? What do you expect? What are you thinking? IRCC is going to lay out a red carpet for everybody to come in through? No, right? So every time a draw happens, it is exciting. Why? It is very exciting for those 5,900. Kudos to you guys. Congratulations. I know a lot of you are freaking out. Probably your IELTS is going to expire. Probably your age is around the corner. Probably your work experience is about to expire on the back end. Probably your work permits are expiring. Probably you need to leave Canada, or God forbid, you're being laid off. And so many different things are in this scenario here. But in all this, the fact that you get invited, that's a big one. Now we're going to talk about the pipeline, this bottleneck that has been created, right? With so many people in the draw, who's getting invited. These, you see this 451 to 500 is now sitting at 60,000 people. So does 450s have a chance? Does 460s have a chance? Below 450 have a chance? We're going to talk about all of that when I get to that section, which is towards the end. So just bear with me till I get there. Now, what else happened with Express Entry? This is pretty much it. We already discussed 1,000 people got 470, 5,900 got 481, and 4,750 got 561. So it was cheers all around. The Express Entry pipeline at this point of time is looking like this. This number is not accurate because this is as of the 5th of December. After that, there has been a draw where they have invited more, about 11,000 people, right? 3 draws, which you already know of. In those 3 draws, where were those 3 draws? In those 3 draws, on the 6th of December, you had 4,750. On the 7th of December, you had 1,000 people for Francophones. And on the 8th of December, you had 5,900 who got invited. So overall, roughly 11,000 something. I didn't calculate the exact number. 601 to 1,200, 4,500 are cleared out. 501 to 600, you have 5,457 people sitting, and between 491 to 500 you have 6,634 people sitting. 481 to 490, 10,335. Now, similar analysis I had done earlier in February this year, and thankfully immediately after that, what I was very happy to see was that there was a back-to-back draw of 7,000, 7,000, 7,000, 3 draws of 21,000 invitations issued in the month of March this year. New Year refreshes the quotas for the ITAs. Even today, a lot of you are misled into believing that the number of PR quotas is the number of ITAs. No, ITAs is not equal to the PR quotas. PR quotas is for the number of people. These are the number of people in the Express Entry pool. Now, these are also number of profiles. They will all be multiple people. For example, you have an Express Entry profile, you and your family. So you have one partner, spouse, 2 children. So you are a family of 4. So that 4 people will go against the PR quota, but only 1 ITA. So this is something which you should understand. Now, in this pool breakdown, 4,500 is already cleared, as we already know. Out of the 5,457, above 501, and above 491, you have 6,634. In my opinion, only opinion, roughly 3,000 to 4,000 have been cleared out, not more. And the reason for that is the STEM category draw was at 481, which basically means out of this 10,335, a big chunk of people, and the reason why a big chunk is over there between 481 to 490 and not in 491 to 500, not in 501 to 600, is because those draws had been happening for a very long time. Throughout this year, there were several draws above 500. Throughout this year, there were several draws above 490. Throughout this year, there were several draws above 488, 489. Those were all cleared out. So whoever was on STEM was also cleared out. What did not happen was 481. 481, the last draw was somewhere in the month of March this year. So after that, the draw did not happen. So those profiles continue to get collected. STEM category draw, the first one which happened was on the 6th of July, score of 486. So again, the big chunk of the STEM category candidates was in 481 to 490. And I just explained to you why. Opinion. So in my opinion only, from the score of 501 to 600 and from 491 to 500, which is sitting a total of about 10,000, no, 6 plus 5, 11, 12,000 people. Out of this 12,000, roughly 3,500 have been cleared out. Okay. And from 481 to 490, you could have seen about roughly 2,000 to 3,000 have been. With this understanding, you now know that the next draw, which I am hoping, really hoping, that we should have another draw in December, probably next week, and definitely a draw before this year ends. I'm hoping that there are at least 2 draws. If there are 2 draws, I expect to see all the 500s being cleared out. I expect to see the score touching probably the high 490s this year itself, if there are 2 draws. If there is only one more draw, then probably you will see another 500-ish score. And going into January, then you can see the 490s coming in. So the number of draws will always make an impact. How frequently the draws are happening, that will also make an impact. If they are to conduct a draw next week, the only thing I feel that they might be restricted with is the quotas of ITAs for this year. This year's PR quotas is already done. It's already finished. I'm sure we are going to be seeing the high range of the PR quota being achieved for this year, probably close to 500,000, if I'm not wrong. The people who are sitting at 490s, first of all, if you're at 490, you are anxious, you are frustrated, you are antsy. So don't be, because in my opinion, and we're only talking opinions, right? In my opinion, you should be cleared out by February at most. A lot depends, whatever I'm saying, a lot depends on how regularly they keep conducting the draws, how regularly they keep conducting the category-based draws. When the next year starts, they will have a fresh quota of about between 90,000 to 110,000 or 110,000 ITAs. I wouldn't say 110, I would say about 90 to 100,000 ITAs. So that 90 to 100,000 ITAs spread over 12 months, you're looking at roughly 8 to 10,000 ITAs per month. If they have to take a section of it for French category, healthcare category, STEM category, you would still see roughly 60, 65,000 towards the regular express entry draw, considering that they will continue with the STEM. But every time a STEM category draw happens, every time a healthcare draw happens, every time a francophone draw happens, those also take away from the express entry pool. Those are also within the express entry pool. So the regular express entry draws will only get help from these draws. It's not like if the category-based draws are happening, the scores for the regular will remain high. No, overall, the draws at this point of time are looking prospective for all the 500s. There is no point of discussing, right? We know for a fact 500s will get cleared out. 490s, in my opinion, you should all be cleared Feb. In worst case, let's say we have another Grinch sitting in IRCC headquarters, right? And they are not very happy with the Christmas. So you might get extended into March. That's the worst that I'm looking at. But I would say definitely by February, all 490s getting cleared out. That's the way it looks like. 6,634 at 491, 5,457 at 501. I'm thinking about 3,000 less. So you have roughly 8,500-ish profiles sitting above 491. 2 draws, that's all it will take at most to clear these if you need to. 480s. Now, this is where the biggest issue is, right? Because last year we saw the draws going right down to 481, and that is because of the back-to-back. Mind you, it was only because of back-to-back draws did you go to 481. Before that, there was already a gap. Last year, November also, there was a big gap because the knock system changes happened. December, there was no draw last year because of that knock system technical glitches. IRCC couldn't conduct the draws. January, they started. They did back-to-back draws, 5,500, 5,500, 11,000 invitations were issued. Then in Feb, then in March, they came out and did this 3 back-to-back draws. So collectively, they managed to bring the scores down to 481 with high number of invitations. But after that, they came back to the regular draws, as in issuing 4,000, 3,000, 3,500, because it is not sustainable for them to keep conducting big draws all the time. So when they come back to the normal, then the pool gets replenished very quickly, right? Keep in mind, at this point of time, there are 900,000, 9 lakh international students in Canada. There are more than 1.2 million foreign workers in Canada. These are all getting points for education, Canadian education. They're all getting points for Canadian work experience. They're all getting job offers, a lot. And I don't know how many LMIAs, I don't have that number yet, but I think it is more than 100,000, more than 150,000 approximately got LMIAs this year. Okay. So in my opinion, so I'm going to restrict myself to only high 480s at this point of time, because obviously future is very far. You can only look forward with the data 3 months at most. So 490s definitely getting cleared out. 480s, we will get into the 480s when we have cleared out 490s. At this point of time, there's no point. But the good thing is, because the STEM category draw has happened, the next Ontario Tech draw, and I'm hoping maybe they'll conduct one this year, or maybe they will conduct one early next year. But whenever the next Ontario Tech draw happens, now the high point for them is going to be at 480. And then the low point is going to be into 470s or 460s. So whenever this kind of a draw will happen, it will give those people at 460s, you guys might have a chance with Ontario. 450s also I would expect, because now that 481 cutoff has been set up for STEM category, whenever the next STEM category draw happens, and I'm looking probably into early next year, whenever that happens, that will then set a base for the Ontario's Human Capital Priorities Tech draw as a high point. So for example, the next STEM category draw happens, let's say Feb, March, with a score of, let's say, 470-ish, 460s, 470s. Then for Ontario Tech Draw, that will become the high point. Let's say the score is at 470, then Ontario will conduct a tech draw at 469 and then go below, depending on number of invitations they want to issue. So 450s, 460s, if you are in tech, this is looking like a possibility because of the STEM category draw that has just happened at 481, and hopefully going into next year as and how they conduct STEM category draws in the next year. ITIs, or for people who are still looking to get work experience, right now is the time. Get the work experience in any of the category based draws for 6 months, and you might find your ticket to get to Canada. That's all for me for today. Thank you so much for joining in. Happy holidays. Enjoy this month of December. It's very nice. There has been some good news and some not so good, but primarily everything to look forward to as we move into the next year.